going on? Blossom is back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives and another episode of Blossom's Ultimate Upgrade Guide. 3 more episodes. That's all we got left. 62, 63. Oh god. Cut! I was counting down and then I realized that I kind of flipped everybody off. So you're not going to see that though. I'm going to cut that out, but that was kind of funny. But anyway, we are now embarking onto 62. Hopefully this series will have a really long shelf life and all the information that you see here would stay true for a very long time, because obviously they're going to be new updates of new cars, but I don't know if they're going to be, you know, a bunch of major changes to a lot of cars that we currently have in the game right now. Hutch seems to be doing less of that for cars ultra and above, but time will tell. But anyway, guys, this is always my personal opinion on things. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree. Today's artwork is brought to you by Team Red versus Team Blue. Which side has the better cars? In my opinion, I think it really goes to Team Blue because of the 2 Subarus, but let's get into it. Starting us off with 969. Now, obviously, if you're watching this in the future, all the information that you're going to be seeing here is going to be what I think is right all the way up to JPT, which is the Japan Pro Tour update. So let's start off with 969. We got a bunch of cars here. Once again, pretty pedestrian, nothing too special, nothing out of the ordinary. Off-road tires, all-surface tires, 4-wheel drive standard tires, and of course we do have one Subaru Legacy, which is a 4-wheel drive medium ground clearance estate. Now, why am I putting it under 969 is because the 0 to 60 is very weak. 6.0 0 to 60. One thing I've been telling myself now is that if the Ultra has a 0 to 60 and if it's performance tires, if it has a 0 to 60 of 6 seconds or more, I'm gonna 969 it, because the Nissan Pulsar was a huge surprise for me and a lot of you players as well. The Pulsar was a car that I thought through and through was going to be 699. It ended up being 969. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to draw the line at 6 seconds, because I've seen cars that are better with 5.90 to 60 stock, which are better at 699 than 969. So the Super Legacy, because I'm following this pattern, I'm putting it under 969. But everything else should make a lot of sense. Now, one thing I feel like some people might talk about is the Ford Escort Rally spec. Like, Blossom, is it worth dry specking? Because I always talk about wet spec, dry spec. Is it worth dry specking a Ford Escort Rally spec 699? In my personal opinion, I don't think so, because Ford has the Fiesta, which is capable of hitting, I think, about 94 handling, and this is going to hit only 91. And of course, if you want to dry spec a off-road tire ultra rare, I would rather go with the Lancia 037. The Lancia 037 is kind of just a car you want like 5 of anyway. You want off-road spec, drag spec, dry spec, everything spec. But yeah, the other one is going to be the GMC Sierra All-Terrain. This is, I feel like, a car some people might say, wouldn't it be good for hill climb if you 996 it? The thing is, I'd rather use like a Trailblazer or a G63. I don't think it's there's much value in 996ing the Sierra All-Terrain, because although the 0 to 60 is relatively low, it has an MRA of 15, and the top speed is 99. I mean, if you max it out, I think the top speed is like 108 or something like that. Not very good. Not worth it in my opinion. Moving on to 699. I have to say, RQ62 is a very small RQ. Only 18 cars here, including prize cars, 16 without prize cars. The only 2 prize cars here are going to be the Di Tommaso Pantera GT5 and the Acura NSX. Everything here I would 699, and I think there are absolutely no outliers at all. Maybe the only one, the Exige S1, because some people say that it has decent MRA. I mean, it does. It's 77, but the top speed isn't very high. The 0 to 60 is low though, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a car that I 699. You can 969 it if you'd like. It will be 1 handling less though. 699 gets 97 handling, 969 gets 96, but of course 969 will win you the slalom and the hairpin, but that isn't a surprise for a lot of people. Now, moving on is 996. We have the TVR Tuscan convertible and the Lotus Europa SE, and now we enter our first controversial pick, and that is the Lotus Europa SE. Why am I saying 996 for the Lotus Europa SE? Well, the main thing is it gets out-handled by literally almost every Lotus Ultra Rare. 83 handling for a Lotus is very weak. So I'm really just focusing on its main strength, which is its 86 MRA, 85, 86 MRA. So the Lotus Europa SE is a bit of a Lotus Carlton kind of car, but it doesn't have as high of a top speed as the Lotus Carlton, but it is low and it has slightly better handling than the Lotus Carlton. It's just a bit of a purgatory kind of car. You don't want to go full on twisty with it, but it's not a fantastic drag car either. I don't think think the Lotus Europa SE is a very good car, and I don't think it gets a lot of use. But if I had to choose, I would go 996. Now, I know that my Europa SE is 969. I was deciding between 969 and 996 at the time, because when GE first came out back in early 2020, I think someone in my Boar Discord server, which very, very old Discord server, told me that 969 was the way to go. That was a lie. 699 if you want to get it twisty, obviously. So now I don't really listen to anyone anymore unless like there's solid proof. But I won't just listen to word of mouth anymore when it comes to upgrading cars, because I got messed over with the Europa, and I got messed over as well with the Porsche RSR. Just off word of mouth. So I'm not going to listen to that anymore. But the Lotus Europa SE, if you really want to twisty it, you can go 699, but I'm really just focusing on its strength, which is the fact that it has a higher top speed than most ultra rare Lotuses besides the Carlton, and it has better MRA than all Lotuses in the ultra rare range. I think it even has more MRA than the Carlton, because I think the Carlton is 84, this one is 85, 86-ish. TBR Tuscan convertible though, needs no introduction, right? Very low 0 to 60, very high top speed, no handling. That is a through and through drag car. And then we have either or, which goes to these two Subarus, the Subaru Forester STI and the Subaru Impreza WX300. Very simple here. You go 699 if you want to dry, and you go 969 if you want to wet. Now, obviously, there is going to be a first option, and obviously, with my choices, I would go 699. I tend to use my Subarus more in dry setting than in a wet setting. So the majority of my JPT Subarus are 699. But if you don't play a lot of clubs, I feel like maybe you might want to go wet setting, because that's only when you'd really be using your Subarus. I play a lot of clubs. There are a lot of Japanese events. Majority of the tracks are dry, and that's why I tend to 699 my Subarus. Now moving on to duplicates. Where's my duplicate? There it is. It's kept ahead for a second. Duplicates, very, very simple. Once again, the two Subarus and the Lotus Exige. Now, these two Subarus, in my opinion, are the cream of the crop. They are among the best JPT Subarus in the game. The Subaru Impreza WRX300 actually beats the RQ64 Subarus in a lot of the twisty track sets. So because of that, I'm actually thinking that this is actually better than the 64s. I remember there was a tune-up challenge, I believe, where there was a max Subaru Impreza WRX on, I think, a Forest Road, and the 64 RQ Subarus were not able to beat it. The only reason why my 64 RQ Subaru was able to beat it, so I guess, you know, it's a bit counterintuitive considering what I just said, was because I think my Legacy 64 RQ, the performance tire, the white one, was 233. But then Hutch knows that everybody 323s their Subarus, and if you 323 your Subaru and you go against the 300 on the, I think it was a Forest Road, it was going to lose. So, you know, that was a pretty fun one. It showed that Hutch really thought about, you know, the player strategies and the metas, and the game design in that level, it was a tune-up a long time ago, was actually really smart. But the Subaru Impreza WRX, what I'm trying to say is that it's able to hit the punching bags that the RQ64s hit. You know, it operates at that level, and I think it's a very, very strong car. It's very, very light, and it handles very well. The Subaru Forester STI has two very nice quirks to it. Number one is an estate, and number two, it has high ground clearance. Not a lot of performance tire cars also have high ground clearance. And then we have the Lotus Exige S1 that needs no introduction. But anyway, let's move on now to the tier maker tier list. So I do believe that this is a first on the series. It might be a second, but there isn't a single hot garbage car that I consider to be in the RQ64 ranks, or there isn't a single RQ62, sorry, that I consider to be in the hot garbage ranks. So not a lot of cars, once again, only 18 cars. We're gonna start with priority 1. It makes a lot of sense. These are the same exact 3 cars I told you to get duplicates off. Now, the main reason for these 2 is because, like I said, they're really strong Subarus. I think they are, you know, the cream of the crop, among the highest, one of the best ultra rare Subarus in the game. But why I want duplicates, why I say duplicates of both of them is because you want one wet and one dry. I think that's actually a good way to put it. I would, once I get a second Forester, I will wet spec it, so 323, and I still don't have a single Subaru Impreza WX300. Never unpacked it before, but I want to get 2. I want to dry spec one and wet spec the other. The Lotus Exige S1 is really a car that I would 9691 and then 6991. Obviously 969 is just for the slalom and hairpin. But honestly, the Lotus Exige S1 is one of those cars where, once again, it's Blossom choice. You can get 3 and 4, and you can get 2 699 or 3 699. Really fantastic car. One of the best hybrid ultra rares in my opinion, because because although it doesn't have a top speed, it is still very lightweight, a low 0 to 60, great handling, and decent MRA. So just don't put it on a test bowl 1 mile and half mile, and you should be fine, or city streets. And then priority 2 goes to most players. These are cars that I think are fantastic, but not just amazing. Cars that, do hit the mark, but it's not the bullseye. Because the mark means bullseye. That made no sense as an analogy. Cars that almost hit the mark, but not the bullseye. So we have the Ford Escort Rally spec. Now the main reason why this isn't on the highest rank is because the Lancia 037 exists. The Infiniti QX30, you get great handling out of a 4-wheel drive all-surface tire car, which also has high ground clearance. And what really makes the XQ30 shine is, along with that great handling that it provides, it's also very lightweight, which is a great car if you want to deploy it in the snow. Jaguar XES is a fantastic British saloon. It has a very low 0 to 60 and decent MRA. The handling could be better though, and that's why it isn't in the highest rank. And then we have the Acura NSXT. The Acura NSXT is a very good handling American car. MRA is 74, around that range, I think 72. And the main reason why it's not in the highest rank is because, once again, it's not the best American twisty car. I might as well just use a Dodge Circuit EV if I want to save RQ, or there is a better Acura NSX, which is the blue Acura NSX, which isn't even a prize car. Then we move on to priority 3. Priority 3, we have the Honda Legend 3.7. Might be a bit harsh to actually put it this low, especially since you guys know how much I love 4-wheel drive standard tire cars. The thing is, the Subaru Legacy BW exists, and only for 2 RQ more, you're getting a car that basically has epic performance. A car that is able to beat max epics in the wet. And the Honda Legend is going to lose to the Legacy literally everywhere. So unfortunately, I know it's a bit harsh, but I'm going to put it in priority 3 because it already loses in its own home ground against the Legacy. And if we open the floodgates in the general sense, then it has to do with cars like the Citadel and cars like the Cadillac CTS. So unfortunately, the Honda Legend, it might be a little harsh for me to put it in priority 3. Some people might say it's a priority 2 car, but I'm going to put it at the top, at the tippy top of priority 3. And then we have the Porsche 718s. These cars are a bit of a hybrid, but just not as good as the Exige, right? Because they have about the same MRA as the Exige, but a little worse handling and a little worse 0 to 60, and they're heavier as well. They do have higher top speeds, but it really doesn't matter because they aren't drag cars anyway, and these are cars that you're not going to rely on putting on a test bowl or a 1 mile anyway. And then you have the TVR Tuscan convertible. The TVR Tuscan convertible, I mean, unfortunately, it has a very, very low 0 to 60, but the MRA is what weighs the TVR down. It's not that bad, it's just that it's not as good as the Tamora or the BTR. And if you want to save RQ using a dragster, then you want to use the Thanos Countach, the Aston Martin Bulldog, or the Charger 3, or even the Miura. Now, I know that this would beat the Miura. I don't even think that it might even beat the Charger 3 on a quarter mile, though. That's one I have to test. The GMC Sierra All-Terrain X, once again, it's a car that I don't use very often. It's decent, but really outside of any GMC event, which doesn't really happen at all in the game, this is a car that I overlook all the time because the Colorado exists and the Lancia 037 exists, and also, it doesn't really have a top speed. So it's not really a dragster anyway. And then you have the Di Tommaso Pantera GT5. The Di Tommaso Pantera GT5 is only in priority 3 because it fills a very, small niche, which is medium ground clearance performance tires Italian cars. That being said though, that's about where all the positives lie. The handling isn't that great, the 0 to 60 isn't that low, and the top speed, although it's high, the MRA isn't very good. So the only thing that you're getting out of this is a car from the 80s that has medium ground clearance that is Italian. That's about it though. But because of that, it's enough niches for it to put it in the intermediate ranks, but not any higher than that. The Donker Ford D8 Cosworth is another one, low 0 to 60, but the handling just isn't good enough. It's not a twisty car, it's not a drag car, but it's not a bad car either. I mean, obviously we're looking at RQ62, this is on the upper echelon of basically ultra rare, so there isn't going to be a lot of hot garbage laying around. The Pontiac Touran GXP, great handling for an all-surface tire SUV, but the 0 to 60 is quite weak and no MRA. At the end of the day, you can get value out of it, but not a lot of value, and it isn't an A-team kind of car. And last but not least is the Cayman, but we talked about that with the Boxster already. And then priority 4 is for the advanced players. Like I said, the Lotus Europa SE is one of those ultra rares where there barely is a place for it to shine. You want to drag Lotus, you're probably going to use the Carlton because that's a better car for the 1 mile in the test bowl. And if you want a twisty Lotus, you're going to use the 340R, or basically any other Lotus for that matter, because 83 handling for an ultra Lotus, especially in the RQ60 plus range, is very, very sad. You know, 83 handling. And then obviously we have the Legacy. Now the Legacy, I have to say, for an RQ62, the 6.00 to 60 is very, very weak. Now why this is RQ62, I believe, is because although the stats feel like it's an RQ57 kind of thing, the only reason why I think it's RQ62 is because it has a relatively high top speed for a Subaru, and it has high MRA for a Subaru. But that isn't saying much. It has 75 MRA, okay? Most of the Subarus from JPT are in the 60s. So 75 is high for a Subaru, but when you open the floodgates to the general senses, it's pretty trash. That being said though, it is an estate, it handles pretty well, so it isn't hot garbage. And last but not least is the Mercedes-Benz C350E. Once again, I think this is the closest car to hot garbage because it doesn't really have MRA. Rear-wheel drive standard tires is a niche that is almost useless in the game. It doesn't handle especially well. The 0 to 60 isn't amazing, the MRA isn't great, but at the end of the day, it's eco-friendly, you know? It has some tags to it. It's a saloon and it is medium ground clearance. So it isn't hot garbage, but it definitely isn't a good car. But anyway, that's going to be my opinion on RQ62. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me down in the comments below. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.